Hey everyone. So before we begin, I do want to take a moment and send thoughts of condolences. All my heart goes out to those affected by the shooting in Las Vegas, Nevada. It was heartless, it was senseless, and there was really no point except to simply destroy and hurt others and to ruin lives. So my heart goes out to all those who were affected, whether they were witnessed or whether they were directly affected by the shooting itself. So I do want to take a moment and send my loving thoughts and prayers and healing energy to those individuals. I'm not sure how to start this conversation because it is kind of a touchy topic, especially right now when it's really heated. But sometimes we learn the biggest lessons and we grow the most whenever we are going through challenging times. And you've heard me say it once before, and you've heard me say it many a times, but I'm going to say it again. You know, we are all intuitive individuals. We are all psychic. We all have the ability to tune into stuff beyond our normal physical senses. And I am not anything special. I come to understand that I've learned how to practice that skill. I understand the process and I use it. That's the only difference between you and I. But everybody is psychic. Everybody is intuitive. Everybody can tune into stuff and sense things. And what I want to do is kind of give you an example of how this works because, there's no time like the present to be able to learn how to tap into your own psychic ability and how to utilize it. And I don't know if you saw my recent video about Hurricane Harvey, how I had some interesting dreams leading up to the hurricane before it hit our area, our region. And then I just suddenly felt the urge to get out of town just a couple of weeks before the actual storm hit. And then we just our trip happened to coincide with leaving 2 days before the storm hit our area. And so we weren't here for any of that. And I really believe that was my intuition, just giving me some pointers, giving me some hints. And I don't want you to think of intuition as if it's like someone deciding whether you are worthy or whether you're special enough or whether you are, you deserve to, this person deserves to live versus this person deserves to die. It doesn't work that way. Psychic ability doesn't work that way. Psychic ability is not like Russian roulette where someone's chosen to rise above others while others aren't. I wasn't chosen to leave town because I'm special or anything like that. I simply am very attached and attuned with my psychic abilities, with my intuition, and it gave me a hey, heads up, and I just went with it. And that's what I would want for a lot of you is to learn to listen, to learn to pay attention, and to tune into your psychic ability, to tune into your own intuitive abilities, and to expand your current capacity for listening to that inner voice so that it can help you, so that you can use it to benefit your life. Before this whole Nevada, before the shootout event, about in July, and I completely forgot about this, when in July I had a dream, and a client just recently reminded me of it after the fact because I thought about it when I heard about the shooting and when I saw the news about it. I was like, I wonder if I sensed anything about this or if I saw anything about this. It's like, this is pretty big. I'm like, I should have tuned in or I should have picked up on something. And I totally forgot that I did that terrorist video back in July. So if you haven't seen the video, check it out. I'm going to link it to my comment section below as well so you can go and check it out. But in that video, I talk about having an interesting dream. And in the dream, I kept describing a dry climate like Nevada or Arizona, and I kept seeing this whole like showbizy theater, old-timey theater, where there was a stage, and I wasn't sure if it was like a theater where people did plays or a venue or some sort of like like a movie theater. I didn't know what it was, but it reminded me of a theater. And there was like some show or some performance, something going on stage. And there was some sort of terrorist attack, and a lot of people in the crowd were affected, and people were watching the show. So I described similar events in that video, and it's interesting because when I went back after I was prompted by my clients, like, Ferny, did you remember your video? I went back and checked it out, and I realized that there was a lot of components, a lot of pieces that I picked up on, but then there was a lot of stuff in there that didn't make sense at the time or that I didn't really understand. And that's why when I shared the video with you guys, I I clearly told you, look, I don't know what my dream meant because there's a lot of components here that are about me and a lot of components with other things. And sometimes when you're picking up on stuff intuitively, psychically, there's a lot of you that's going to be in there, especially when you're not used to paying attention to certain types of events or certain types of circumstances. When I first started to do readings for people, I realized that many times there was some of me in the reading, and I'd have to figure out and distinguish between what was me and what was for them. And so through the reading, I would figure that out, and then I would clarify things as often as I could for the client or for the individual, so that way that they would get less contaminated information. Because your ego, your own personality can kind of get in the mix there. So in my dream video, I described how there were some interesting components there, and I really believe that I was tuning into some of the information regarding this specific incident that just happened in Las Vegas. But then there was some me in there as well, and I think my brain was trying to give me any kind of correlating information to help me understand the severity or the graphicness of what was happening in Las Vegas when this happened. And so when I had my dream, I didn't really know exactly what was happening other than what I was dreaming about. And so when I told you about the dream, I did share with you what it is that I saw, but then I also shared with you what the gist of the dream was, what was the overall theme. Because sometimes when you look at the dream from a higher perspective, or like from an overall awareness of like all the components, and you look at it from more basic terms, then it makes a lot of sense. And it's very basic. And if you follow the basic message of the dream, it can make a lot of sense for you. Back when I was younger, I had an uncle that I didn't get along with. He was kind of an asshole, and we parted on really bad terms. And then he ended up getting cancer, and then he passed away a few months after we parted, as far as like not talking to each other anymore and not having any communication with each other. And so he helped to raise one of my sisters, and unbeknownst to me, I didn't know at the time that she was going through some personal struggles, and I didn't know anything that was going on because she was being raised by other family members, and so we'd kind of become estranged with that part of the family. So in my dream, my uncle showed up, and he was on a bed. He was in like a hospital bed, and he looked at me and he said, he was sorry for everything he had done to cause me to be hurt. And I told him, I'm sorry too. We both got wrapped up in all our own drama, and we just started to turn on each other. And then he did the most interesting thing in the dream. He crapped on himself. He took a shit, and there was no one around to clean it up, and I was the only person there. So he turned over in the dream in the bed, and he needed me to clean up his shit for him. And so then as that happened, then I woke up. So I was like, okay, what the hell does that mean? What does this dream mean? Like, my uncle's like pooping, and I'm having to clean up his mess. I don't understand what the dream meant. And then 2 weeks later, I got a call from my aunt, who was helping to raise my sister. And it turns out that she was having some personal struggles, and she told me what was going on. And those struggles, those issues were directly connected to the way that they raised my sister. So that came through very clearly, and I understood exactly what the message meant at that point, which is, this is what I did, this is what I caused, I need you to clean it up for me. So at that point, I went in there and I took more of a leadership role, and I started to help out with the situation with my sister so that I could help her, overcome these challenges. So sometimes the messages that we get are going to be very straightforward. Sometimes they're very literal. And there may be in symbolic form, but the language of spirit is not. It's not vocabulary. It's not words. Now, you might see words in your mind. You might see letters, but it's not like they're sitting there spelling out sentences, and you're gonna be able to read verbatim like what they're saying. There's a show that I think is so funny. It's called Ghost Whisperer, and it's starring Jennifer Love Hewitt, and it was on just a few years ago. And in every episode, the ghost would be talking to spirit, would be talking to Jennifer Love Hewitt, her character. And what was funny is that they spoke exact like sentences, and she would like regurgitate the exact sentence to the person that she was trying to help. And I'm just like, really? Like, it does not happen that way at all. Like, they are not that clear. They are not that, like, are you kidding me? Like, oh my God, my job would be a lot easier if I could hear spirit that clearly. So the messages sometimes are not as clear, and they may be symbolic, and you have to interpret and you have to try to understand it from a different perspective than what you think it means in the dream. And so in retrospect, when I had the dream and I shared that with you guys, I had an idea of what it meant, but I also knew that there could be some of me in there, and it could just be a whole jumble of crap. But then in retrospect, now going back and listening to me and my descriptives and some of the details that I shared, I'm like, oh, I totally get what I was seeing now, and I totally get what was happening there. And a friend of mine was saying, wow, like you really picked up on a lot of the details. And I was like, no, I don't think so. I'm like, I think I actually didn't do such a great job because I don't feel like I helped a single person with that dream other than just sharing it with everybody. It's like I didn't keep one person from dying. I didn't save anybody. So I didn't feel like I did enough. I feel like I could have done more. I wish I would have gotten more detail, then I could have maybe done something with that information, could have possibly prevented some lives from being lost. Interestingly, coincidentally, my sister was supposed to be in Vegas this week, and she decided, last minute, they decided they weren't going to go. And I'm so grateful because she literally would have been there right now going through all of this there as this is all happening. And I don't know what would have occurred had she been there. So it's quite close to home. It hits close to home because this could have easily been one of my family members that had passed away in such a violent situation. So sometimes in our dreams, it's going to be symbolic, and you have to interpret it, and you have to look at it from a different perspective than what you're used to. And so I try to analyze it and break it down to its basic components. So sometimes when you have dreams, break it down to its basic components because you might see a clearer picture. You might get a better understanding of what it is that is being shared with you. What is it that you're sensing? What is it that you're understanding about the circumstances or about the future that you might be tapping into? So it's so important to tune into your own intuition and your own psyche. There's so many stories about people who did not get on the plane when 9/11 happened, and they were supposed to be on that plane. There's so many people who talk about they decided not to go to work that day or whatever. And my feeling on that is that their intuition tipped them off and they paid attention, or someone around them's intuition tipped them off and they paid attention. And so listen to your intuition. Listen to what your intuition is trying to tell you. And the way that you do that is simply by, paying attention to your thoughts, paying attention to what's going through your brain. Now, every day we have thoughts all the time. We have thoughts that talk about, I need to pay my bill, I'm pissed off at my partner, my mom is driving me crazy. You have all these random thoughts that pop in your head. Some of these are about your everyday life, just consistently going in circles. But then there's sometimes information or things that pop in that just don't have any logical basis for even being there in the first place. They're not connected with the other thoughts. Sometimes if for example, you're thinking, you're washing your dishes and you're thinking, oh, I've got to put this plate and maybe I've got to buy some new forks because these are kind of wearing out or these are not going to last as long as I thought they were. I need to call my uncle, to see if he wants to come and visit me. Okay, so maybe I need to go to the store tomorrow just because I'm probably out of paper towels and we need paper towels. Like, that interruption in thought, like you were thinking about forks, you were thinking about, utensils, and all of a sudden you have this like sudden urge to call your uncle and have him come and visit you. That's intuition right there. It's a random thought that's not connected to the other thoughts around it. It's just a random a piece of information that's been popped into your head. And so that's your intuition. A lot of people during the psychic classes that I teach, they think that it's about, when you quiet your mind and you shut everything off, then something like supernatural is going to happen. And that's like, no, you're expecting too much. You're putting too much pressure on yourself. And that's not how it works. What you need to do, there are people who have had supernatural experiences, but that's not usually how psychic or intuitive information comes through. It comes through your current thought set, to your current thought wavelength, or it's like the Dow Jones, the stock market. When you are watching the news and you've got like all these pieces of information going by, it's all interconnected, they're all relating. And then there was like one piece of information there that says, park your car in a different spot today. That's intuition because it's not connected to the thoughts around it. It's just randomly there, it pops in. And if you pay more attention to your thoughts, you start to notice these patterns. You start to notice these differences in the thoughts that you have, and which is why meditation is so important. Why a lot of times when people are trying to develop, meditation is the one thing that we suggest, is because it's not about silencing your thoughts. It's not about quieting your mind. You do want to not be so obsessive in your thinking about the things that you're used to thinking about on a regular basis. You just want to be aware of your thoughts, and then that'll start to settle you down. So if you meditate, your natural like thinking habits about, you have to pay this bill, your partner's pissing you off, those natural thoughts start to get just quieter, or they're not so intense, they're not so overwhelming. And then as you pay attention, as you become more aware, you start to notice all these other little thoughts that are like sneaking in there in your flow. So that's how you pay attention to intuition. It's not just about like, well, let me listen to my inner self. Who the hell is my inner self? I wanted to share my experience through this because, I wanted you to be aware of how your intuition works and how you can learn to tap into it, because your intuition can help you. It can save your life in some instances. So it's so important to develop yours and to understand that it does serve a purpose for you. And you don't have to be a professional psychic to be psychic. Just take a few moments every day, 5 minutes, just breathe, focus on your breathing, and then pay attention to the thoughts that come into your head, and try not to get attached to each individual thought. Like if you have a thought about paying your bill, don't start thinking about paying your bills and the money and not having enough money, because that starts to get your chatterbox going. Instead, just, okay, I have a thought about paying my bills. Okay, I'll deal with that later. What's next? Okay, I got that. What's next? Okay. And that way you'll pay more attention and you'll understand what's happening behind the scenes. All right, guys. Well, I hope this video has helped you guys understand intuition, how it works, and how you can potentially tap into yours. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I would love to hear your own stories about when you've sensed an occurrence or some event happening before it happened. And if you have your own tips or any ideas that have helped you develop your intuition, please share it in the comment section below. Okay, guys, I will talk to you guys next time. Okay, bye.